record this video, it's Christmas Eve. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Tom, surely have you not got anything better to do on Christmas Eve than to record a photography video? But no, I haven't, because the task that I'm going to do in this video is probably one of my favourite and most important photography tasks of the whole year. At this time of year, I tend to get a little bit nostalgic, looking back at the photographs that I've made over the last 12 months and looking forward to the next 12 months to see what I can improve on, new things that I can develop, and just see where I want to take my photography in general. For the last few years, I've been giving myself some what I like to call photography New Year's resolutions. Things that I would like to achieve during the next 12 months ahead. At the beginning of 2022, I had two of these resolutions. The first one was to make more photographs for myself. I tend to go out and photograph a lot of things for Yorkshire Photo Walks, whether it's doing these videos or planning and recceing various different Yorkshire locations that I think will do well on the forthcoming schedule. And by doing that, I tend to take photographs that I think other people will like, rather than what I would usually photograph. So I wanted to put a bit of time aside to go out just for me, on my own little excursions, and make photographs just for me. Leading on from that, I also wanted to be a bit more adventurous with my photography, try new things and start being a bit more experimental with the way not only that I photograph things, but also the things that I photograph. Because it's always a learning curve, is photography, and I think that if we stick in a rut all the time, then we're just going to keep reproducing the same things over and over again. So I just wanted to be a little bit more adventurous. If nobody else watches this video and I'm just talking to myself in a year's time, then hopefully this video will give me some grounding on who I am as a photographer now and what I've improved on and what I've achieved in terms of my photography goals for the year ahead. If you are watching this video, which hopefully you are, then I hope you get something out of it in terms of that process of looking back on what you've done so far, seeing how far you've come as a photographer, but also pushing yourself in the direction that you want to go in the year ahead to make bigger and better things. So let's delve into this year review of 2022, where I'm going to share with you some of my favourite photographs that I've made over the last 12 months and set myself some goals to develop on what I've made in this year to 2023 and the year ahead. Between Christmas and New Year for me is usually quite a relaxed one. I've got my schedule out for the year ahead and I've got a few weeks off work, which is always a great time to implement the first of those resolutions that I had at the beginning of 2022 to go out on photography excursions for myself. And one of the first ones that I went on this year was to the city of Manchester. Now, I've got a bit of a history around Manchester. I used to be a coach driver and I used to take a party of school children across there every week for about 6 years. So I got to know the city very well indeed. So I went back on this day when the light was absolutely fantastic and was just drawn in by the light and various different aspects of contrast. And hopefully, as you can see from a few of these photographs that I'm sharing with you now, that I did what I wanted to do. I was a bit more experimental with the way that I was photographing and the way that I was approaching the subject matter that was in front of me. I even took a photograph of a person, which for me is quite something. A few days later, I found myself packing my passport once again as I headed back across the Pennines, this time to the town of Blackpool on the west coast. Now, to be honest, Blackpool is somewhere that I would usually avoid like the plague, but again, I was drawn in by what was meant to be some beautiful light. When I pulled up on Blackpool Pleasure Beach seafront, I was greeted with an absolute downpour of rain, which helped me to get a few nice moody shots of the back streets and walking along a bit of the promenade. But as I continued my walk, this beautiful light developed that was promised by the forecasters, and it allowed me to get some, what I think, are really nice photographs of this soft winter light hitting the promenade, reflecting off the rain that had fallen, and really emphasising the contrast of the scenes on the day. And to be honest, these are some of my favourite photographs that I've taken this year, because I was hitting that goal of being able to go out, make photographs for myself, and just try a few new things whilst I had the time to do so. Now, as we all know, the thing with New Year's resolutions is that they're always stronger at the beginning of the year when we've just made them. As the year goes on, they start to wane and we start to lapse back into our everyday lives as they just take over. That's why when I go to the gym in January and February, it's always absolutely heaving. But by the time you get to March, April and May, all of the people that set those New Year's resolutions to get fitter and improve their health have realised that it's much more appealing to sit and watch the latest box set on Netflix with a tub of ice cream. So I must admit I fell into this trap myself. As I started back to work and the photo walk schedule got going, again I lapsed back into this idea of making photographs that I thought other people might want to look at. But that broke up a little bit and I jumped back on the bandwagon in early spring when I led a photography weekend to Edinburgh. Now, these weekends are always a little bit difficult because I've got this idea that I want to make photographs to help the people that I'm teaching on these weekends to develop their own photographic skills and go in the direction that they want to go in. But I'm also in a place that is quite stimulating personally as well. So this was my first real test of trying to weave what I wanted to do in terms of my New Year's resolution and making photographs for me, together with helping other people to develop their own skills as well. I managed to get a few photographs that I was pleased with, but maybe not as many as I could have done if I was just there on my own. Now, I'm not saying that that's detrimental because, of course, I was earning money and I was working that weekend, so it wasn't like the previous trips that I'd done. But I started to get into this practice of, whilst I wasn't talking to other people, just seeing things out the corner of my eye and thinking, oh yeah, I might like to take a photograph of that, or I might try that out. And it just pushed me a little bit into being a bit more adventurous, which of course was the second thread of the resolution that I'd set myself in January. In early May, I had another chance to get away by myself to make photographs that I wanted to make, as my wife and I headed down to the Forest of Dean for a week's holiday. It was an absolutely glorious week. We not only explored the forest area, but also the surrounding towns, villages, and everything else that the area had to offer. It just jumped me back onto that idea of making photographs for me. And whilst we were there, what I tried to do was to not just make holiday snaps, but to really engage with my subject matter, to think, how would I really want to photograph this rather than what would look pretty in my photo album. So it continued this development of an idea of being more adventurous in terms of what I was photographing, but also pushed me in a direction that would help me as the year went on, as we'll soon come to realise. My next photography excursion was once again with Yorkshire Photo Walks, this time leading a group of photographers in the Lake District. It gave me a chance to explore an area that I hadn't really explored very much before, as we headed out towards the Western Lake District, starting off at St Bees on the coast and then working inland towards Rannerdale and the beautiful Bluebell Valley and Crummock Water and Ennerdale, which were areas that I've been to in the past but not really had much chance to get out there with my camera and make some photographs. So a little bit like in Edinburgh, I was helping people to develop their own photography skills, whilst on the side making photographs that I personally would like myself to be photographing. And I must admit, the highlight of this trip was the visit to St Bees, because this was an area that I hadn't been to before, and the light on the evening that we got there was absolutely spectacular before it dropped a little bit at sunset, unfortunately, but you can't have everything. But the light that we had and the minimalist nature of the scene, which, as you know, is my kind of thing, just all fell together, and I feel like I made some really good photographs that evening. And they're photographs that I'm looking back on now and thinking that they're probably some of my favourite that I've made this year. A month later, and we were on the road again, this time heading down to the New Forest for a long weekend for my birthday. Another chance to get away from everything that surrounds me here in Yorkshire and go out and make photographs that I wanted to make photographs of. Again, I was very mindful of what was stimulating me during the time away, and I tried to make as many photographs as I possibly could at every eventuality. Every time that that little radar went off in my mind thinking, ooh, this could make a nice photograph, I was there trying to make that photograph. And what that brings is this feeling of, well, actually, not all of these photographs are going to be any good because a lot of them are quite experimental. But there's got to be something that makes us pick up a camera. And whatever that is, whatever we make a photograph of, we'll always conjure something up within our mind when we look back at it. This photograph here of a hovercraft in the Hovercraft Museum that we visited just picks up on that idea, because I can almost smell the hovercraft when I look at this photograph, which for me is an absolutely fantastic thing, loving the smell of old machinery as I do. Very strange, I know. In August, I took another week off work, this time to tick something off my bucket list, which was walking the Dales Way. Something that I'd been wanting to do for a long time but never really had the chance to do. But this year was the year of the Dales Way for me. My aim was to not race from one end of the path in Ilkley to the other end in Bowness in record time. I wanted to slow myself down, to photograph and film the route and just generally immerse myself in this experience. I often find when I go away to places, because I live such a busy life, racing from one place to another, I don't slow down enough and live for the moment. I just take a photograph as a quick snap, as a record shot, and then move on. So what this trip made me do was it made me photograph things, not only that I wanted to photograph, but it made me enjoy the experience more because I was making those photographs. I was in the moment. I was making the video as well, which also helped with this process. And I think that out of all the photographic experiences that I've had this year, this was the one that really grounded me as a photographer. Not necessarily for the quality of photographs that I was making, but the personal quality of them. The qualities that make me look back at them in hopefully years to come and think, ah yes, I remember the smell of that. I remember the sound of that. Not just, oh yeah, I remember going there. My next photography excursion was to be in early October, and this was going to be an epic trip. Because Yorkshire Photo Walks turned 10 years old in 2022, I wanted to create a trip of a lifetime for a group of photographers. I led them on a trip to the majestic country of Iceland. Now, I don't want to go too deeply into the photographs that I made, because the first video that I'm going to be bringing out of 2023 is going to be a documentary of the trip, where I'm going to share with you the photographs that I made whilst we were in this fantastic part of the world. But the photographs that I'm sharing with you here are photographs that I made just for me whilst we were out there. You're probably thinking, well, Tom, you could have photographed all of the vast waterfalls, glaciers and black sand beaches, which we did. But some of these photographs surrounding the area where we stayed, picking up on a little bit of the culture that we experienced while we were there, which for me was different to anywhere else in the world that I'd been, was more indicative of the trip for me personally. So that's why I'm including those particular photographs in this video, because they tie in with that resolution that hopefully I've managed to stick to throughout the year. As the year started to draw to a close, I was back out on the road doing a few recce's for photo walk locations that are coming up on the 2023 schedule. Now, a year ago I would have gone out on these trips and just got a few headline photographs that would look good on my website to sell the photo walks to people like you that are interested in developing their photography skills. But this year I made myself stick around in these locations a little bit more, getting those headline shots, but also getting under the skin of the location, exploring it, making photographs for me and making a few different photographs as well, which hopefully shows me that that New Year's resolution that I made myself at the beginning of this year has stuck around. It may have waned from time to time, but it's still there, and it's made me a stronger photographer from my personal perspective. Now, I know that New Year's resolutions work for some people and not for others, and some people may be watching this and thinking, well, I don't like to set goals because if I don't achieve those goals, I see it as a failure at the end of the year. But what I've taken out of the last few years when I've been setting myself these New Year's resolutions is that the process of looking back at what we've done over the last 12 months is really key to that process, because it allows us to make decisions based on where we've come from, rather than just suddenly saying, I'm going to go out and photograph something completely different that you may not have tried before, you may not have put a lot of effort into before, and therefore when you try it, and you might think, I don't actually like this, then you park it and think nothing else of it ever again. But by looking back at the photographs that we've made, we can start to make decisions on, I really like that style of photograph, or I really like that particular location, or I really enjoyed it when I made a photograph series on this specific topic. And by doing that, we can place ourselves in a position where it's much stronger, the ability to pursue something in the months ahead, because we've already had a little tantalising glimpse of it. And I feel that that's the stage that I'm at now, looking back at these photographs that I've made. I've really enjoyed looking back at them because they've conjured up memories. They've taken me back to the locations that I've visited, and they've brought back those senses that I experienced while I was there. When it comes to making photographs, we're all stimulated by different things. We all take photographs of different subject matter, using different techniques and applying different styles. That's what makes this world of photography so wonderfully diverse. So if you are going to set some New Year's photography resolutions, then make sure that they're your own, because only you as an individual photographer can look back at where you've come from and then be able to look ahead to where you would like to be in 12 months' time. So I suppose that begs the question, what are my 2023 photography New Year's resolutions? Well, firstly, I'd like to develop further the resolutions that I set myself 12 months ago. I feel like I'm a lot further along the path than I was back then, which is a great thing. But I still feel that there's room for improvement in taking more photographs myself and keeping that adventurous nature in the photographs that I make. Secondly, based on my trip along the Dales Way, which for me personally over the last 12 months was where I developed my photography skills more than anywhere else, I would say. I like this idea of photographing a journey and creating not just individual photographs but a series of photographs in the form of a short form project. I often think that we look at our photographs as individual images, and there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes if we're presented with a sequence or series of photographs around a specific subject, then we create more narrative in the memories that we have when we look back at them. So that's something that I definitely want to explore in the year ahead. So whether it's another long distance walk or a series of different walks that I undertake and photograph and potentially film as well, or maybe a road trip somewhere, who knows? But that's definitely the route that I'd like to take in 2023. And if you stay tuned to the Yorkshire Photo Walks YouTube channel, then you can be guaranteed that I will film it, photograph it and share it with you. I hope you've got something out of this video. Then if you have, then please give it a like. If you would like to share your own photography New Year's resolutions with me, I'd love to hear about them. Please share them with me in the comment section below. And don't forget to check out YorkshirePhotoWalks.com for our 2023 photo walk schedule, where you could be joining me in unique and inspirational Yorkshire locations and beyond to improve your photography skills. So I'd like to finish off by wishing you a very happy Christmas, a happy new year, and whatever your resolutions are for the next year ahead, I hope you hit them headlong, and by this time next year you can look back on some fantastic photographs. Thank you very much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again very soon.